What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
12 rupees. Chapter 273. Advertise here. Roar. In the next second, everyone drew their weapons from their waists and yelled in response. A powerful, brutal breath suddenly spread to the front of Annie's lobby, and also changed the color of Marine who was guarding the gate. Who are you? This is a judicial powerhouse, leave immediately. Whether you are pirates or criminals, you must not be presumptuous here. The loud shout soon sounded, and the Marines were on guard, their faces serious and nervous. Soon, two huge figures stepped out, holding weapons and looking down. There are even giants guarding the gate here. Leonard and others were surprised. Are they Dory's companions? Kulik lit a cigarette and said unexpectedly. Jiāng Liú jumped down from the bow, and the cadres and the crew from behind followed one by one, and everyone walked towards the gate in a hurry. Go away, you, there is no room for violation here. The two giants looked down at them and said in a deep voice. When the 1,000-year dragon flew up, the two of them took another look in surprise. They didn't expect that this ship even had such creatures. Giant, we are the Black Flag Pirates. My name is Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú, maybe you have heard of my name. Jiāng Liú pulled out the long knife around his waist and shouted loudly. Black Flag, Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú. The two giants shook their bodies and ignored a glance. Then one of them remembered something and said in surprise, are you the pirate group that Chief Dory they joined? Yes, Dory is the captain of our giants team. Jiāng Liú said loudly. Surprises appeared on the faces of the two giants, and I did not expect to hear the news of the patriarch here. Do you know where Chief Dory is? They asked again. I'm also looking for them now, but they should probably be on Giant Island now. Jiāng Liú raised his head and said, now we have something to do, please let the two of you get out of it a little bit. The two giants were puzzled. You are the captain of our patriarch. We respect you very much, but we still take the liberty to ask, what do you want to do with your crew? Jiāng Liú did not hide. World, Marine, what he did to Black Flag, I think you two should know. Today, I am here to take revenge. This island will be destroyed. The cold and overbearing voice made the two giants startled for a while. The two of you, too, were tricked by Marine's rhetoric to keep the gate here. It's better to join us and find Dory and Reggie with us in the future. Immediately afterwards, Jiāng Liú said again. The giant blinked, with a look of excitement on his face. Really, you will take us to the patriarch? Jiāng Liú nodded and smiled. Of course, what Jiāng Liú said always counts. It is good. The two giants nodded their heads, and then without hesitation, they walked away and let the door behind them. This scene changed the expressions of the Marines. The giant has rebelled. The lead captain immediately yelled at the phone worm, his entire face turned green. Block the door, don't let them pass. The Marines yelled loudly. Jiāng Liú grinned and looked at the closed iron door in front of him. Can you stop it? When the words fell, the long knife in his right hand suddenly swung out. The void in front was shocked, a brilliant blade of light rushed, and it was in front of the gate in the blink of an eye. Crack, almost without obstruction, the gate was divided into two halves, then 4, 8, 16, 32, and 64. With a bang, the door shattered, and even the walls on both sides were cracked, and numerous cracks appeared. Ah, Marine above the gate, the aftermath of being slashed by this knife, all screamed in horror. Guys, go. Jiāng Liú stepped and ran forward. Marine, the blood debt of Black Flag needs blood to pay for it. O'Hara's sinking in tragedy, do you think we can assume it hasn't happened? Starting from Annie's lobby, let you know us again, let the world know us again, come back. The roars tore through the void, reflecting the roar of thunder, making the Marines on the Annie's lobby completely panic and nervous. Attack. Fire. Don't be afraid, don't step back. This is the place of Annie's lobby, retreating means you lose the face of Marine. The Marine officer who led the team roared loudly, with fine beads of sweat oozing from his forehead. There are not many opponents, but the momentum is powerful and terrifying. Da 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 da. When Jiāng Liú and others rushed into the gate, the sound of fine footsteps quickly sounded, and densely packed Marine and World Government protection personnel rushed out from all directions. The black suit is mixed with the Marine military uniform and looks a bit spectacular. Jiāng Liú stopped, sneered, and then stared suddenly. Quote. The overbearing aura spread out in the front, rippling and shaking, passing through the bodies of these people in a flash. The figure that was originally sprinting forward and running suddenly stagnated. The large piece of Marine's eyes paled, and he fell to the ground with a thud, losing consciousness. Conqueror's hockey continued to spread, and cracks quickly appeared on the streets and walls on both sides. A group of trash fish can't stop our footsteps. Taking a breath, Jiāng Liú waved the knife again. The purple-blue slash swelled rapidly, turning into a huge hundreds of meters, buzzing out. A piece of Marine was shaken off, and a large building was cut in half from the middle, rumbling. The cannonball in the hands of the Valdo bomber, when it fell on the crowd, became 100 times in size, a huge mushroom cloud rose up, and a large area of Marine fell again. The screams kept coming, and as they moved forward, the houses were collapsing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The flames are also burning. Request support from the headquarters. Black flag, it's the Black Flag pirates. Colonel Marine looked shocked, horrified, and eager, shouting into the phone bug. From the moment the battle broke out, he knew the strength and horror of the opponent, and the blockbuster Marine was falling and hitting hard. No one can stop the opponent's footsteps. The horror of this group of people is unprecedented. Where? The head's voice was very solemn, and he asked Daobi quickly. Eni's lobby. It's in Eni's lobby. They invaded Eni's lobby. Come on. We can't stop it at all. The colonel yelled. Only in a blink of an eye, another squad's Marine flew up, screaming and being engulfed by the sea of fire. Quick. The opponent's footsteps are too fast. Chapter 274. Advertise here. Naval Headquarters, Marineford. What? Eni's lobby. Are you talking about the Eni's lobby? The colonel at the headquarters who answered the phone immediately stood up, his complexion changed drastically, and he roared in shock. But for a while, the opposite side of the phone worm could only hear the roar of artillery fire, and the colonel who asked for help did not respond. What are you kidding? Eni's lobby. The Black Flag dared to attack Eni's lobby. This is the first time that Eni's lobby has been established. Mad. Really crazy. The colonel looked solemn and kept talking. He turned his head and ran towards Marshal Marine's office. The seriousness of this matter can be imagined, and he does not believe that intelligence will be misreported or lies. The accuracy of this matter can be judged within a short period of time. But if the military situation is delayed, there will be disaster. A moment later, Sengoku office. Boom boom boom. A hurried and vigorous knock on the door soon came out. Sengoku, who was reviewing the documents on the desk, raised his head and said, "Come in." The door was opened with a bang. The colonel, looking anxious, took a breath and immediately shouted, "The big thing is not 100, Master Marshal. What's going on? Make an officer like you, who has experienced many battles, be so flustered." Sengoku was a little surprised. This was the first time he saw the expression on the other side. Eni's lobby has been attacked. The colonel took a deep breath and said loudly. He didn't care about the slightest officer etiquette. Compared to etiquette, respect, the shocking information that was not in front of him was more important. You mean Eni's lobby? Sengoku was stunned, and soon his expression became serious. It's the Black Flag, they attacked Eni's lobby. The accuracy of the information should be reported soon. The colonel said loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, several figures rushed to the door of the marshal's office, sweating profusely and anxiously, shouting as soon as he rushed in. Eni's lobby has been attacked. The Black Flag has arrived at Eni's lobby, and the situation is now in chaos. They have broken through the main entrance, and they are now on the former island. Sengoku heard the words and stood up immediately. His complexion became extremely solemn in an instant. He had thought about Black Flag's revenge, but he did not expect that it would come so fast and so fiercely. Eni's lobby is an important hub of the world government and the front portal of naval headquarters. It forms a triangular stable structure with the headquarters of Marineford and Impel down. If something happens, the consequences will be disastrous. Order Marine Admiral Akainu, Kazaru, Vice Admiral Garp, act now. With the configuration of Buster Call, open the gate of justice and move quickly to Eni's lobby. Be sure to stop the frenzied behavior of the Haichi gang. Sengoku shouted loudly and quickly gave orders. Yes. The colonel standing at the door responded loudly. In an instant, the entire naval headquarters sounded sharp sirens, and the expressions of the Marines became serious. Eni's lobby is too close to Marineford, and the enemy is already in sight. It can be said that if there is a little negligence, or the other party is a little crazy, he will be able to enter immediately. At the same time, Eni's lobby. Boom. The huge slash wave directly cut the large buildings on the former island in half. The Marines screamed and were crashed into the sky, and then fell heavily. Jiāng Liú and his group were almost unimpeded, and in a short period of time, they had arrived on the island. On this island, there are endless courts. And between the main island and the former island is a long and narrow passage, suspended above a huge abyss. Jiāng Liú's knife directly cut open the building that blocked the road between the former island and the main island, and even the gate did not need to be opened. They have already arrived on the island, let the people from the trial office on the island evacuate immediately. Quick, 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 everyone obeys orders, shrinks their forces, and waits for the support of the headquarters to arrive. Retreat back and don't confront them head on. Urgent shouts resounded through the streets all over the court, panicked people fleeing everywhere, and judges with fearful expressions everywhere. In the past, they have always been aloof, but at this moment, they are facing the threat of death, and some people's faces have turned blue. Haichi, this will eventually become a name that they will remember for life. Boom. The tall building in front was collapsing, like a twisted and broken glass, slowly falling down, splashing large amounts of dust. The smoke was everywhere, and the wind was blowing towards the street. People panicked, but curiously looked back, wanting to see what kind of person it was that they dared to attack Eni's lobby and even hit here. In the next second, a figure stepped out. The burly, tall, 3-meter high, and handsome face made the people who flee suddenly taken aback. It was supposed to be a fair and upright place for trial, but it has become the dirtiest and ugly place in the world. It really disgusts me. A faint voice spread out, Jiāng Liú scanned his eyes, and instantly stared at the person fleeing in front of him. People who are in darkness are also the source of darkness. In your life, how many wrong judgments have you made? How many wrongs have you caused? Doesn't my heart hurt? Jiāng Liú stepped. His eyes were sharp at this moment, and it hurt many people's hearts. I think you should not hurt. But today, your body will at least hurt. It will hurt my heart. Suddenly, Jiāng Liú ran, his figure turned into a ray of light, and in the blink of an eye he jumped up and came to everyone's heads. The long sword in his hand was swung, and the sharp slash instantly turned into a blade of light, bursting out tens of thousands of times, bursting at everyone present. Puff puff puff. A series of voices sounded, and countless figures fell to the ground at this moment, screaming. They looked at the blood flowing out of their bodies, yelling, terrified. Jiāng Liú landed on both feet and scanned these people in a circle. Does it hurt? The pain is right. Also let Marine, the world, feel the pain in Laozi's heart. As he said, the long knife in his hand suddenly swung out again. Heavy mighty slash. A circle of ripples spread, and a fierce slash instantly chopped all the buildings in this island in half from the middle. In this second, time and space seemed to be still. The people who saw this scene opened their mouths wide, their pupils contracted, and were speechless in shock. This knife almost cut the entire island in half. Boom. Immediately afterwards, the entire island shook violently, and a large area of buildings raised dust. After today, Eni's lobby, you guys will build it again. A deep voice sounded, reaching everyone's ears. That figure stepped with a knife and walked towards the judicial tower again. In the smoke behind him, several figures soon appeared, closely following. Chapter 275. Advertise here. On the island, the neatly constructed and rigorous trial court has been turned into a ruin at this moment. Such a miserable scene is unexpected for everyone. Dust fluttered into the air, the sound of thunder overhead was deafening, and the entire Eni's lobby was bleak, as if the end had come. No one has imagined the scene seen at this moment, and no one could have expected that such a thing would happen. Ah, there were screams everywhere, the red color of flames burning everywhere. Eni's lobby at this moment has become a hell. Open the suspension bridge. At the same time, Jiāng Liú said to the cadres who were following him. Waldo and Cyrus moved quickly, but within a dozen breaths of effort, they wiped out all the enemies on the sentry tower, and then put down the suspension bridge. A crowd of people looked at the judicial tower ahead, their eyes sharpened. Compared with other areas, the judicial tower is the most important place on this island, and it is also its core location. It is also the location of the CP organization and other politicians. Inside the Justice Tower at this time, there were panic screams and the sound of fleeing footsteps everywhere. Damn it, it's the Black Flag, but it turns out to be them. Didn't this group of people have no news 20 years ago? How come they are here? Damn it, they are here to avenge Orbia. Spandam's face turned a little green, and he was the most frightened person when he heard the word Black Flag. 20 years ago, he personally killed Orbia, and the sinking of O'Hara has an inseparable relationship with him. Such a deep hatred, how could the people of the Black Flag let him go? Damn it, damn it, damn it, why didn't these Marines stop them? Marines Admiral, why hasn't it come yet? He kept yelling, concealing his panic, but the tears and nasal discharge had already betrayed him. Spandam, now very scared, for the first time he felt that he was so close to death. Ka la 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 la. The suspension bridge was sinking slowly and gradually stabilized, and the passage connecting the island was quickly unfolded in front of everyone. This is the last place. Destroy them, and then continue to do our thing. Jiāng Liú said lightly, taking a step forward. The cadres in the rear, the crew closely followed. But for a while, a tall, magnificent building appeared before everyone's eyes. The Tower of Justice, its interior is extremely complicated, like a maze. Jiāng Liú and others stood under this building, with hesitation on their faces. Are we going in? Cyrus asked aloud. It doesn't seem necessary. Isn't it simpler to destroy it directly from the outside? The shell in Waldo's right hand turned, and a gleam of black light appeared. Yes, our goal, but destruction. No need to go in. It's easier to destroy him right here. Jiāng Liú nodded, agreeing with Waldo's words. So, Karma blinked, but before he could speak, he saw that Jiāng Liú had stretched out his right hand and gently touched the wall of the building. Everyone has their own limit to bear weight, human beings, animals, and dead. Muttered, Jiāng Liú's right hand, an inexplicable strange force swept out in an instant. Shoo, hoo. Black light burst out from between his fingers, hit the building in a blink of an eye, and merged into it at an extremely fast speed. A slight vibration suddenly shocked everyone inside. Spandam was shocked, with a bad feeling. Buzzing. In the luxurious office, everything suddenly shook. What happened? He yelled in panic. But no one responded to him. At this moment, everyone in the judicial tower was wide-eyed, staring at the surrounding walls in horror. Everything was trembling and creaking, like the roof of this house, bearing an unimaginable weight. And, the weight continues to increase. Crush it. Sink here. With his right hand slowly retracted, Jiāng Liú said lightly. Boom. Suddenly, the top floor of the judicial tower burst open, split from the middle, and then fell downward, as if the weight of the stone had increased countless times in this second, and the pillars of the house could no longer support such a weight. Find flowers. The whole building began to shake violently, and then twisted, and countless cracks appeared on the surface of the wall. It can't be supported anymore. What the hell? Ah. Help. Spandam trembled all over, watching the glass on the window burst into pieces, watching the cracks appearing on the walls of the room, and the clods of soil shaking and falling down. The luxurious crystal lamp swayed violently, and then crashed down, hitting him in front of him, scaring him into tears and tears. Escape. I want to escape. Come on, save me out. He yelled. But as soon as the voice fell, there was a loud bang in the passage outside, and the upper floor fell down, and the clods of dust fluttered into the sky. 0. It's over. Muttering, Spandam looked at the ceiling. I saw the beautifully patterned ceiling, which shattered at this moment, and a large piece of rock collapsed with a bang, slamming towards him. In an instant, his body was submerged by this large piece of rock. Immediately afterwards, the entire floor collapsed. Boom. The Tower of Justice fell down, collapsed from the center, and then on both sides, very neat and regular, as if an invisible meteorite fell from the sky and hit the top floor. Strange, but shocking. In the smoke fluttering, in front of Jiāng Liú and others, there was a rubble of rubble, among which was sandwiched the bright red bloodline. I don't know how many people inside have died in the face of this catastrophe. At the same time, in front of them, a huge portal was clearly revealed. It was extremely tall, extremely magnificent, and it was tightly closed. There is the Gate of Justice, through it, naval headquarters, and impel down. The deputy captain is still impel down. Cyrus and Waldo spoke in a deep voice, their eyes flickering. Today's task has been completed. Jiāng Liú smiled faintly. Marine, world government, I must feel the pain. Suddenly, the huge door of justice in front opened slowly, and then it got bigger, and dense black spots appeared. Marine is here. Waldo condensed his voice. 10,000. Chapter 276. Advertise here. Buzzing. The heavy gate of justice slowly opened, from small to large, and warships passed through this gate almost at the fastest speed. Eni's lobby. Look there. Is it really Eni's lobby there? Unbelievable, the famous Eni's lobby has become a ruin. Countless Marines opened their eyes wide at this moment, staring at the island in front of them in shock, and took a breath of cold air. The scene of Eni's lobby made them couldn't believe their eyes. Once the iconic Justice Tower on this island, it has now become a mountain of dust. Looking into the distance, there is also smoke and dust on the island, and large areas are burning with flames. They destroyed Eni's lobby. Sengoku took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, his eyes full of anger. It's terrible, guys, Kizaru said condensedly. At this moment, he remembered the scene when he faced the Black Flag Gang. In his mind, these pirates are undoubtedly the most unprovoked guys. There is no doubt that they are the biggest scum in the world. Akainu shouted angrily. The magma on his body was rumbling, and the aura in his body rose up and became extremely terrifying. Be prepared for a hard fight. The people in front of us are the craziest and most brutal criminal gang in history. Sengoku said loudly. His eyes were solemn and serious, and he knew the threat of Jiāng Liú and his group very clearly. The densely packed warships will soon be approaching Eni's lobby, and at the same time, Jiāng Liú and the group are also moving. We should withdraw. However, before that, I will leave it to Sengoku and the others, a little commemorative gift. Jiāng Liú narrowed his eyes and said lightly. You go first, leave it to me here. Waldo and the others did not hesitate, and after looking at each other, they immediately turned and ran to the back. Boom. Above the sky, the thunder roared, and the lightning interlaced, which had evolved extremely violently, and it seemed that large patches of lightning would drop down at any time. They are going to run. Akainu saw the situation on Eni's lobby and said loudly. Kizaru. Sengoku immediately shouted. Standing on the side, Kizaru sighed, a dazzling golden light shone on his body, twisted for the next second, and left here in an instant. The light refracted a few times in the void, and it was already in the air. In the blink of an eye, Kizaru had already reached the sky above Eni's lobby. Jiāng Liú raised his head, looked at the golden light in the sky, and then retracted his eyes. He doesn't care about the opponent. Kizaru will naturally have his own opponent in the air. Jiāng Liú, I haven't seen you in 20 years, and it has given us such a huge pressure once it came, but it really makes it difficult for me to handle it. Kizaru appeared in the air and murmured. His figure flashed once again, and several refractions were already instantly approaching where Jiāng Liú was. Soon, the light had reached 10 meters in front of him. Try my improved light speed kick. Speed as weight. A deep voice sounded, a little golden light suddenly shone, and Kizaru's figure emerged. But at this moment, the sky suddenly sounded a deafening roar, and the blue arc came to the golden light in an instant, blocking Jiāng Liú's front. I want to attack our captain, have I approved it? Enel flicked the long stick in his right hand, and the electric arc shook violently at the split right foot. Boom. In the next second, thunder and lightning collided with the golden light, bursting out a brilliant light. It's really difficult. Thor Enel. Kizaru's eyes condensed, and he said in a deep voice. In terms of speed, the two can be said to be on par, and the guy in front of them can be said to be their biggest natural enemy. Get out, Kizaru. Enel shook his stick again, swiping a large thunder and lightning forward, roaring, and attacking Kizaru. The latter's figure dodged, avoiding the thunder and lightning, and pointed his right hand forward. Bo. A golden laser beam rushed towards Enel. Useless. Enel yelled, swept the long stick, and the electric squeaked, exploding the laser beam, shining a large ray of light. On the ground, Jiāng Liú raised his head and glanced at the two people in a ball on top of his head. He drew both knives from his waist. Don't worry, Marine, we will have a big battle. But not now. Not far ahead, Marine's front row of warships is about to reach the shore of Eni's lobby. Jiāng Liú's voice clearly spread to everyone's ears, causing Sengoku and others to change their colors. What is he going to do? A touch of depression, horror, suddenly swept across the sky. Kizaru, who was fighting with Enel, shrank his eyes, and immediately retreated, looking at Jiāng Liú, who was holding two knives on the ground and in an offensive posture. Are you going to zoom in? That's terrible. He naturally remembered that the man in front of him was the terrifying monster that defeated Whitebeard Roger with his team. If the other party wants to make a big move, it can't be blocked by oneself. Suddenly, behind Jiāng Liú, a purple-blue horrible phantom rose up, unable to describe the vastness of this phantom. Its body was twisted and floating, like a ghost, staring at the blood-red light from its pupils, giving people mental pressure. A domineering aura swept from the two long knives and quickly entangled them. Conquerors winding. 9 states and 4 seas, 6 in harmony and 8 in hospitality. The long knife hides its tears, the world is so difficult, the dung is tens of thousands, and the ants fight for their lives. 2 swords. The indifferent voice slowly sounded, and the domineering majesty swept across the sky, and Jiāng Liú's eyes also flashed red light at this moment. An increase of 20,000 tons. Zan Zhongshan. When the voice fell, Jiāng Liú's 2 long knives waved out. Call out. The serpentine light of the sword rose up like 2 dragons, cutting into the void, and the sky suddenly cracked at this moment, and 2 cracks appeared. Immediately afterwards, the light of the knife fell violently and slashed fiercely on the ground in front. Boom. A deafening sound rang at this moment, and the entire Eni's lobby began to vibrate violently and shake. Crack wipe. Countless cracks spread out, violent shock waves swept in all directions, and in a blink of an eye, the front warship on the sea was submerged. The fierce slash directly slashed the warship away, and the terrible weight pressed down, the sea rumbling and collapsed, forming a huge uzumaki, swept Marine into it. This knife is a memorial for you. It's also my Jiāng Liú's announcement of returning to this era. The deep voice resounded through the world, and the figure slowly disappeared in the smoke. Eni's lobby began to split, collapse, and sink under the knife. Chapter 277. Boom. Above the sky, there were dense clouds, and the roar of thunder was endless. Lei Ying. Suddenly, a loud roar sounded, followed by lightning roars, flashing out, and crashing towards the ground below. At this moment, it is no longer possible to calculate how many lightning bolts there are. Thousands, 10,000, 100,000, or a million. The overwhelming, thin and long blue arc, with unstoppable majesty, bombarded towards the fragmented Eni's lobby. Boom 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 boom. The sound of the explosion entered the ears of the Marines at this moment, and their front became extremely bright and radiant. The sight that would never be forgotten in their lives also came into their eyes at this time. Secretary, Eni's lobby. They trembled and spit out the name of the island in shock. It's horrible, it's like the end of the world. Black Flag, it turned out to be such a pirate group. In the world, no one knows how many people have forgotten the name of the Black Flag, but from this moment, they will undoubtedly remember this name very deeply. I will never forget it for a lifetime. The sea churned, rolled up the big waves, and howled the warship that was about to rush to the forefront, and rushed to the gate of justice. Sengoku 18's face was green and his eyes were gloomy. We are late, Sengoku. Garp said in a deep voice, his hair has turned gray, and his whole person looks much older than it was 20 years ago. Now, how can we stop them? Sengoku clutched his forehead, his head hurting badly. Kizaru turned into a golden light and fell on the deck, his face also full of dignity. They are difficult to deal with. In a word, the faces of the people on the deck are also more ugly. Ahead, Eni's lobby rumbling loudly, the surrounding sea water kept tumbling, rolling up waves of waves and rippling layers of ripples. Go back, we must come up with a sound plan to prevent the Black Flag pirates from doing this incident again. Sengoku said in a deep voice. You should first think about how to deal with the 5 old guys of the world government. This incident happened right in front of Mariajoy. Garp said. Sengoku's head hurts even more when he heard this. At the same time, the Black Pearl had left Eni's lobby and continued to sail quickly on the sea. Next stop, where to go? Waldo turned his head curiously and asked Jiāng Liú. Enel turned into an electric light, hovering cross-legged in front of everyone, grinning. His Lei Ying made up his knife and completely ruined Eni's lobby, which was the best in the game. Sabayati Archipelago. Jiāng Liú smiled. I thought you were planning to rescue the deputy captain. Waldo said solemnly. Go there first and see an old person. Jiāng Liú smiled. As for Letterfield, we still need to plan carefully. It's not easy to escape Marine's sight and rescue him from impel down. Jiāng Liú would not have the slightest contempt for the most heavily defended undersea prison in the world. In such a long history, with such a reputation, the terrible impel down can be imagined. Moreover, with the occurrence of Eni's lobby, Marine's defense against impel down may be even tougher. Prior to this, we will summon all the separated crew members back. After a pause, Jiāng Liú said again. Valdo nodded. He knew that the other party always considered things more comprehensively than himself. 3 days later, Thriller Bark. The misty fog enveloped this area, it appeared very dark, and the visibility was minimized here. The weird, gloomy atmosphere makes people who enter here shudder and feel terrified. A jet-black ship, clearing the mist, slowly approached here. Maria, this kid, turned out to be so gloomy. What a ghost place, it's too outrageous, ghostly, what kind of area is this place? When I see him, I must teach him a lesson. As soon as Waldo and other officials entered here, they kept talking loudly. Thriller Bark, the atmosphere of this sea area really scared them, making people feel like a chill is coming from behind, and the whole body is chilly. I remember this kid used to be very sunny and very energetic. It really can't keep up with the times, the changes are so big. The cadres sighed. The surface of the sea was enveloped by mist, and nothing could be seen. Soon, in front of the Black Pearl, a broken ship appeared, floating quietly on the sea, like a ghost. How many ships have sunk here is really weird. Maria, what have you been doing for so many years? Waldo said again. Enel blinked, sat on the boat extension, bit an apple, and scanned the wrecked ship on the sea ahead. Suddenly, he was shocked all over. Yes, there is a skeleton. Isn't it normal for the dead to have skeletons? What a fuss. Leonard despised. Not far away, the 3 girls Robin Vivi Nami hugged and shivered. Girls are always scared of things like skull bones. No, this skull will move. Enel said loudly. He suddenly turned into lightning, and appeared on the broken ship in an instant. Then, his eyes stared at the white skeleton sitting on the chair, holding the violin in his arms, and kept watching. At this moment, the skeleton was motionless and stopped there. Hey, what are you? Enel yelled. 100. He clearly saw that the skull was moving just now, and with the power of the heart network, it is absolutely impossible to misunderstand it. The skeleton did not move, remained still, as if dead. Enel naturally didn't suspect that he was wrong. He took a few steps forward, approached the skeleton, and then stared at the skeleton carefully. You are too close to me. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Enel drew back abruptly, and in the next second he saw the skeleton sitting on the chair, standing still. Afterwards, the guy took off his hat and bowed slightly to salute him. Hi, I have never seen a living person. Enel's eyes widened, shocked in his heart. Skeleton actually spoke. The Black Pearl, slowly approaching, docked on the side of the ship, and the screams on the ship also came one after another. Ah, skeleton moved. This is Nami. A ghost, is it a ghost? Leonard shouted excitedly. Jiāng Liú looked at the skeleton on the opposite ship with interest, but he knew very clearly that this guy was Brook. Sorry, I scared everyone. I am indeed dead, but I am still alive. Hey. Hello everyone, my name is Brook. He introduced himself with a smile, looking very gentleman. Chapter 278. Advertise here. Talking skeleton. In this gloomy Devil's Delta, Thriller Bark, they can see such creatures, which undoubtedly makes them feel a little surprised and excited while fearing in their hearts. This is a very novel thing. Everyone soon chatted with Brook, because he hadn't met a living person for a long time, and Brook also seemed very excited. Yo ha, it's been a long time since I saw so many living people. It's a gift from fate to meet you all. I want to cry with excitement, but I have no tears. Brook cried. Are you a human before? You turned into a skeleton and are still alive. It's so strange, I have never seen such an interesting thing. Then you must be familiar with this place. The crew chatted happily with Brook. You are going to find Moria. That guy is too evil, he is the master of this area, and even my shadow is in his hand. Of course, you look very strong, if I can get back my shadow from his hands, I will be grateful to you. Yo ha, Brook said with a smile covering his mouth. He was also observing this group of young people. The flag of the ship was a pure black flag, which was rare, but the temperament on his body seemed familiar, it was the breath of a pirate. Don't worry, Brook, we will definitely get your shadow back from Moria's hands. That guy was our crew member before. Seeing us, he should be very pleasantly surprised. The cadres said with a smile. Moria, is it your crew? It's really surprising, you can't see the same breath as him at all. Brook blinked, surprised. You go with us. Our deputy captain has always remembered you for so many years. Jiāng Liú said suddenly. Your deputy captain? Brook was startled, puzzled. His name is Letterfield, and his biggest dream in life is to find that man named Brook. I think that person should be you. Jiāng Liú said with a sigh. People like Letterfield have such a deep obsession with Brook, which is indeed surprising. I remember, it turns out that the person the deputy captain has been looking for is you. Yes, he is called Brook. I remember too. When everyone heard the captain say, they all shouted in surprise, and looked at Brook incredulously. Ladefield. Brook murmured, he was recalling this somewhat familiar but unfamiliar name. After a long while, he suddenly remembered another young man he met when he passed an island. Is that the boy? It seems that he is called Letterfield. He wanted to go sailing with us, but because he was too young, we refused. Since then, it has never appeared again. After a pause, Brooke sighed. Unexpectedly, he turned out to be your deputy captain. Looking at the group of people in front of him, Brooke's eyes became softer, which is undoubtedly fate. Destiny in the dark pushed them together. I'll go with you, he suddenly said. Then, on the Black Pearl, there was a skeleton playing with the violin. He had a black politeness and a fluffy exploding head, which looked very peculiar. Let's go see Moria. Next, he should be able to help us a lot with our plan. Jiāng Liú narrowed his eyes and said. The fog on the sea was pushed away again, and the Black Pearl was like a ghost incarnation, dispelling layers of gray fog, and drove forward. After a while, a huge island appeared in front of everyone. This is Thriller Bark. Maria, this kid is really capable. Such a huge ship, he should be much stronger than before. The cadres exclaimed. Thriller Bark is indeed huge, just in terms of size, it is definitely not inferior to an island. The closer you get, the dark and damp, strange and gloomy feeling gradually sweeps over. It's this guy's boat, it's not sunny at all. We haven't seen him for a long time. I heard that Moria is very gloomy now. Leonard sighed. The crew has changed a lot, especially Moria, who has become one of the most famous shichibukai in the world. The Black Pearl quickly landed, and everyone got off the ship and walked to the three-masted ship. The island looked huge and gloomy. Everyone looked up and the sky was gloomy, which made people feel very depressed. I have to reform this kid well, it turned out to be so gloomy. Waldo touched his fist. The expressions of Enel, Leonard and others changed slightly. During those youthful years, no one could forget the fist of Brother Valdo. They were almost beaten all the way. Captain, a group of rats sneaked into our island. Inside the castle, Absalom said aloud. The island is full of zombies buried beneath the surface, and they will soon be able to know what is going on. How dare to break into my territory? Moria's eyes were cold, and she asked loudly. The very strange faces seemed to be a group of pirates who have never seen it before, but among them, there is that skeleton. Absalom chuckled. In the words, he didn't seem to care about this group of pirates. That skeleton. A sneer appeared on Moria's face. Then, he reached out and took the stack of photos that Absalom had handed over. When the face in the first photo reflected in his pupils, Moria's body was shocked, and her eyes immediately stared. Really incredible. It's him. How could it be him? Absalom was taken aback, raised his head and looked at the captain in confusion. Who are they? Does the captain know? Of course I know, how come I don't know? It's them, it's really them. Moria read one by one, tears of excitement in her eyes. They're back, they're finally back. In each photo, the familiar face shocked Moria's heart. Captain, Brother Valdo, Brother Cyrus, Leonard, Enel, Kulik, you guys. When did you gather together? Unexpectedly, I was never notified. Moria murmured and stood up abruptly, looking excited. You guys, finally came to me. I am waiting for this moment, for this time, I have worked hard for a long time. Chapter 279. Advertise here. The battle in the Black Restricted Zone that year caused great trauma to Moria's body and mind. He was depressed and lost for a long time. Then came the transformation of the mind. The terrifying three-masted ship also appeared in the world, and Moria pulled up a gang of tomb robbers, digging up the bodies of those famous people everywhere. He also plundered the shadows of other strong men and poured them into these corpses, resurrecting them in an alternative way, but under his control. As long as the power in his hand is strongest, he can rescue the deputy captain and get back everything that the Black Flag has lost. Becoming Shichibukai is just to make it more convenient and more concealed to save the power in your hands. But at this moment, he actually saw the captain and the cadres who had disappeared for 20 years. The excitement in Moria's heart can be expected. Don't stop them, just wait for them here. I have been waiting for a long time. Moria trembled. Absalom was puzzled, but didn't refute it either. He knew Captain Moria, who used to be in a terrible group of pirates. Could it be that the group of people lurking into the island this time are the captain of Captain Moria and his former partner? With a shock in his heart, Absalom was surprised and curious. In the past several times in exchanges with Marine's senior management, he has occasionally heard the senior Marines mention Moria's past. In the words of Marine's senior management, the fear of Moria's former pirate group was extremely clear. Time passed by, and in a blink of an eye, there were more figures in front of the gate of the castle. All the way is unimpeded, no one stops us. Waldo wondered. Moria's subordinates shouldn't be so insensitive. He should have found us, let's go in. Jiāng Liú smiled faintly. Everyone entered the castle, and Perona greeted her. She was floating in the air, with weird smoky makeup, watching the crowd giggling. Captain Moria, I've been waiting for you for a long time. Please come with me. Jiāng Liú smiled and followed Perona's pace. But for a moment, he was in a spacious hall and saw Moria and his men who were waiting. Captain, it's really you. Moria rushed over excitedly and hugged the captain. I miss you so much. 20 years. 20 years have passed. Without any news from you, the deputy captain has also been arrested. While talking, Moria burst into tears. Absalom and Perona on the side looked at Moria in surprise. They had never seen each other's emotions. After a while, Moria's excitement subsided, and she said again. In the past few years, I have worked hard to rescue the deputy captain and to get back what the Black Flag lost. Now that the captain and cadres are back, I am more confident. With that, Moria hurriedly walked outside. Everyone come with me, I will show you my preparations over the years. These are precious artworks. Jiāng Liú grinned. Let's take a look. Waldo and others are also very curious. They followed Moria and quickly came to a huge room. They saw a huge figure sitting cross-legged in it. Judging from its size, it was even taller and mightier than the giants. This is the demon Oz. I pulled its body back, and as long as the shadow of the strong man is injected, he can exert unimaginable terrifying power under my control. With him, we can impel down and fight in and rescue the deputy captain. Moria shouted excitedly. Majin Oz. Brook looked at this scene, exclaimed. He remembered this guy. In his time, it was already a legend, and he was also called Youngwo Oz, and his power was terrifying. This is Akoku. This is Silver Axe. This is Captain John. They are all once famous pirates, just like the Devil Oz. As long as they join the shadow of the strong, they can have powerful strength for our use. Moria again pointed to other people beside the demon Oz, who were obviously small. The sword hero Ryuma is over there. Just because he lacks a sword, he may be able to show his strength before he was born. Soon, he was right again. Jiāng Liú's complexion darkened, he patted the long knife on his waist. Ryuma's knife, here is me. Ah, how come you are here with the captain? Moria said in astonishment. You guy, Laozi is from Wanokuni, and Ryuma is the ancestor of my Shimotsuki clan. You actually planed Laozi's ancestral grave. Jiāng Liú roared with flames burning in his eyes. Seeing that the situation is not good, the person next to him quickly grabbed him. Moria's face turned green, and she kept backing away. I don't know, I will send Mr. Ryuma back right away. Smelly boy, you really owe you a beating. It seems that when you were young, I didn't educate you well. Jiāng Liú roared again and again. Moria shivered. He didn't expect to dig out such an oolong. After waiting a long time, Jiāng Liú hummed and calmed his anger. Send me back early, or Laozi will break your leg. Yes, Captain. Moria immediately said loudly. It's just that Wanokuni is now occupied by the guy 4 Emperors Kaido. My people may not be able to do this. After a pause, his eyes were full of hatred. After the battle of the Black Forbidden Zone, I once fought with his pirates in Wanokuni, but the losses were great. Most of my companions died in that battle. Kaido, I must kill him myself. Jiāng Liú's eyes sharpened. You said Kaido is in Wanokuni. Yes, Kaido is in Wanokuni now. Moria nodded. Where is Kazuki Oden? Is he still alive? Jiāng Liú asked again. Everything seems to be inconsistent with the plot, so in other words, Kazuki Oden may also be dead. I haven't heard of it. Moria froze, and shook her head. He did not pay much attention to the members of the Roger Pirates. Although the captain and Roger seemed to have a good relationship back then, the people below them were not so motivated. Yes. Jiāng Liú sighed lightly. Captain, I have everything ready, plus you, plus cadres, we can go and rescue the deputy captain right away. Moria said excitedly again. Get ready, go with us right away. Jiāng Liú smiled when he heard the words, and said. These zombies of Moria, if used well, are indeed a group of quite powerful combat power. In the next battle, it may play a great role. Chapter 280. Advertise here. After taking the captain to watch his collection over the years, and after working hard, Moria was excited and confident at the same time. The Devil Oz, Akoku, Silver Axe, Captain John, and the swordsman Ryuma are all strong men who have shaken the entire era. As long as they put the shadow of the strong in their bodies, they can exert shocking power, and the possibility of rescuing the deputy captain will become even greater. Now, together with the captain and cadres, even if it is impelled down, they are going to try to attack. We still need to go to Sabayati Archipelago. Moria prepares well, but the next hard fight is coming. Your zombies, make good use of it, will have a good performance, keep working hard. The captain and officers were about to leave soon, but Moria was excited by the words. He has been lurking in the dark for these years, and he has been recognized by his friends. That's enough. The Black Pearl quickly drove away from Moria's sight and disappeared into the mist. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Absalom and shouted, Man, we are about to set sail. Let this huge ship docked here, move. Absalom could feel the excitement of his captain, and he could even be said to have become excited, but he was a little nervous. He could understand the meaning of this group of people's words just now. They are going to attack Impel Down. Are you kidding me? What is Impel Down? It is the most defensive zone in the world. Attacking Impel Down is undoubtedly an attack on Naval Headquarters Marineford, and will face the most elite marine in the world, the largest number of powerhouses. Just thinking about it will make people shiver. This is simply something a madman would do. Captain, do we really want to attack Impel Down? Absalom said tremblingly. Don't ask too much, do your own thing. Moria turned around and said with a smile. Afterwards, he looked at Absalom with a deep look in his eyes. What we are going to do next, it should be Marine that should be nervous. You have no idea, my captain and cadres, who are they? Absalom trembled. He did not know Jiāng Liú and the others, but no matter who did this kind of thing, it would shock the whole world. Do it. Moria increased her tone and said again. Absalom trembled, turned and left quickly. Not far away Perona floated in the air, covering her mouth with a chuckle. It seems that Captain Moria, your ambition for so many years has finally been realized. Hey, Perona, you will soon see the big news that shocked the whole world. Moria laughed. He recalled the encounter with the captain and the days when he fought side by side with the Black Flag. At the same time, the whole world was in a huge shock. Eni's lobby sank. What are you kidding? Are you sure this is true? Eni's lobby is the core of the world government's judicial mission, and it is very close to Marineford. How could it sink? So what happened? At this moment, almost every newspaper in the world shook, and the presidents yelled at the phone worm, asking about the details of the incident. No one can believe such an absurd fact in the first place. But soon, they confirmed the authenticity of the incident, and all the information obtained through the channels involved a name again. Black Flag. It's the Black Flag pirates. They boarded the Eni's lobby, killed countless marine and world government personnel, and then sank the island with their own hands. The towers of justice are all in ruins. It's incredible. They actually did such a thing. They are the worst criminals in the world. A group of young people who don't know the heights of the sky and earth are so surprised because of this incident. Don't you know who they are? 20 years ago, this was a group of pirates who made the world bow their heads. In various newspapers, there are constant voices, and the whole world is shaking because of this huge news. Eni's lobby, its significance in the world is too important. The flag hanging on the judicial tower represents the union of more than 300 countries. To commit such a terrorist incident means to declare war on the whole world. Find flowers. Black Flag. This pirate group may have been unfamiliar to him before, but at this moment, the whole world knows his name. When people of the older generation woke up to the name of this pirate group, their hearts were shaken, their complexion complex, and they were all lost in memories. The name of the Black Flag resounded throughout the world. Mariajoy. This group of people is crazy, lawless. How can they fight in Eni's lobby, such a sacred place, and sink such an island? This is revenge, it's revenge for what we did 10 years ago. Unacceptable. The 5 elders roared with anger on their faces. They all felt angry about what Haichi did. But what to do with them? This matter can no longer be suppressed, and their bounty will be announced to the world again. Let the people in the world share the pressure of Marine. The 5 old men were extremely angry, but helpless, they could only give such orders. Soon, various newspapers and headlines were covered with reports on the Black Flag pirates and Eni's lobby incident. At the same time, each of the messenger birds carried brand new reward lists and flew around the world. The captain of the Black Flag pirates, Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú, is offering a reward of 6.5 billion. Many young generations of pirates, when they received a new reward list above the ocean, saw the young face, their eyes widened and their hearts were shocked. 6.5 billion. This is even more than the amount of 4 Emperors Whitebeard, which is the highest in the entire world. Once a great swordsman in the first world, the world's strongest man. When Jiāng Liú's name was reported, the whole world was in an uproar. Followed by the various crew members and cadres of the Black Flag. Everyone is a terrifying powerhouse with extremely exaggerated bounty. When gathered together, people suddenly discovered that the configuration of this pirate group has surpassed the 4 emperors. They are the real overlords, hiding for 20 years. If the 4 emperors call it the emperor, they should be the kings of this sea. 4 emperors. Black Flag, that's the emperor. 1. Chapter 281. Advertise here. The Eni's lobby incident undoubtedly pushed the Black Flag that had disappeared for 20 years to the cusp of the storm. The reward orders of huge bounty have also made everyone in the world aware of the terrible pirate group. They actually appeared in the world again, and they did such an earth-shattering thing. On an island, a middle-aged man with a weird inscription on his face looked serious and murmured. Dorag, who are they? Sabo looked at the bounty in front of him curiously. He didn't know Jiāng Liú and his group, and he had never heard of Haichi. The Black Flag pirates, when I was young, they were the overlords of the sea. In that era, their prestige even surpassed Roger. Dorage sighed. The old man was also sad for them, unable to eat, and even suffered serious injuries because of Jiāng Liú. Sabo looked surprised, his eyes widened. But how can such a terrible pirate group disappear for 20 years? Dorag shook his head. Who knows? But since it has appeared again, I am afraid that the world will change drastically in the future. He looked into the distance, his eyes gradually deepening. In that era, Dorag once thought that the Black Flag had the ability to disrupt the world and even change the world, but ultimately disappointed that this powerful pirate group eventually disappeared into obscurity. Now that they appear again, what will they bring? Sabayati Archipelago. The streets were full of voices, and there were lively scenes everywhere. Jiāng Liú and others wore overcoats and hats, silently shuttled through the crowd. Where are we going, Captain? Waldo murmured. After the Black Pearl docked at the Sabayati Archipelago, they shuttled back and forth under the leadership of each other. Because of the re-exposure of the reward order, they have become big figures, and they can only hide their figures and wear this black robe to cover their figures. Go to meet an old person, and by the way, see if he will help us in the next action. Jiāng Liú Kaido. Old man. Waldo and others couldn't think of who it was, but the captain said yes. After a while, everyone came to the door of a remote bar. The name of the bar is very strange, it's called the Rip-Up Bar, which is very unfriendly at first glance. Who the hell is here? Waldo wondered. Jiāng Liú didn't answer, opened the doorstop and went straight in. Naturally the people behind him followed closely. To his surprise, the business of this bar is actually pretty good. There are 2 or 3 guests drinking quietly. Aunt Xiao lay at the front desk lazily. After seeing them, she asked casually, "What to drink?" Jiāng Liú smiled and came to Aunt Xiao. "I didn't come to drink." After a pause, he said again. "But to take care of your business, just a rum bar for one person." Aunt Xiao looked at Jiāng Liú, her face unchanged, and said with a smile, "We are a bar here and we don't provide other services." "I'm looking for someone," Jiāng Liú said. "Then you should go to the detective agency. I happen to know that there is a famous shop on the island of Sabayati. They should be able to help you." Aunt Xiao said with a smile. "I'm looking for Rayleigh." Jiāng Liú said directly. Behind him, Waldo had already chosen a place to sit down. Aunt Xiao paused with her hand holding the wine bottle. She slowly turned around and looked at the tall man with his coat and hat covering his face. "Who are you?" Although Rayleigh is not a famous man, he is not known by everyone. Jiāng Liú stretched out his hand to uncover his coat and hat, revealing a young and handsome face. "I think, I don't need to introduce myself." When she saw this familiar face, Aunt Xiao's complexion changed slightly, and then she smiled and whistled. "It's really unexpected that a big and famous person will come to me." "Where is Rayleigh?" Jiāng Liú asked again. "Where is he? How would I know?" Aunt Xiao shrugged and sneered. Jiāng Liú didn't care, and repeated again, "Where is Rayleigh? I'm looking for something to do with him." Aunt Xiao still didn't change her face, even if she knew how powerful the man in front of her was, and who the group of people sitting not far away was, she was not afraid and nervous. "Then you shouldn't find me, maybe Marine will know where he is." Jiāng Liú stopped speaking, staring at the woman in front of him without sending a single glance. Inexplicably, there is a serious atmosphere sweeping the entire bar. Aunt Xiao became nervous, gradually sweating on her forehead. If such a character really rushes in her place, she can't bear it. At this moment, the door at the entrance was pushed open again, and a figure with gray hair and glasses stepped forward. When he saw Jiāng Liú with his back to him and other people sitting in the shop, the man was a little surprised and raised his head and smiled at Aunt Xiao. "Business is so good today. It seems that my idea of rubbing alcohol seems to be impossible to realize." Aunt Xiao silently covered her forehead when she saw the visitor. "You shouldn't come now." Rayleigh was puzzled. "What's the matter?" "Trouble is coming." Aunt Xiao sighed. Rayleigh was still puzzled. He came to the bar. From Aunt Xiao's expression, he noticed something different from the man next to him. "Rayleigh." Some low but familiar voice suddenly came into his ears, causing him to give a slight shock. This voice is. When a name popped into his mind, the man suddenly turned around and smiled at him. "Have not seen you for a long time." Rayleigh was stunned, his pupils shrank suddenly, and a light flashed above his glasses. Jiāng Liú. Soon, he adjusted his emotions and shouted with a complex expression. "It's been a long time. 20 full years, of course not a long time, but a long, long time." Since the man in front of him was once the overlord of the sea, the identity of the other sitting not far away is self-evident. Perceiving his gaze, Waldo, Cyrus and others all took off their coats and hats one after another and looked at him. "Really?" Rayleigh was shocked. Emotions have become more complicated. The former Black Flag is now all members, but the Roger Pirate Group has become a thing of the past forever. You look at it from 20 years ago, and there is almost no change. Rayleigh said with a faint smile. Aunt Xiao silently placed 2 glasses of wine in front of them, and put wine on the table of Waldo and others. She knew in her heart that at this moment, the occasion seemed calm on the surface, but it was extremely tense and solemn. Jiāng Liú was a group of people who were not partners. It's the enemy. Chapter 282. Advertise here. Very dangerous enemy. This group of people once turned the whole world upside down, and even the Roger Pirates were not their opponents. And sitting there in front of him, not only does he not look fierce, but there are some handsome men who are even the most famous in the world. Such a person, who comes here, sits in front of them, even with a smile on his face, who is not dignified. We have crossed time and space and came to this era from 20 years ago. The purpose is to do something you want and must do. Jiāng Liú said softly. Rayleigh's face became inexplicably solemn. What the other party said was strange, but he understood. "Roger, there is not enough time, but I still have some time and some means. Some things cannot be done in our era, but in this era, there is great hope." Jiāng Liú kept talking, raised the cup in his hand, gestured slightly, and took a sip. Rayleigh was not in the mood to drink 18 wines. He looked at the man close at hand with a serious and solemn expression. "You are looking for me, what is the matter?" "I'm asking you for some help." Jiāng Liú smiled. "Help? I don't think I can help you with this old body. Putting a film on your boat is something I, an old man, can do." Rayleigh laughed. Other things, you have seen it too, I have retired. Jiāng Liú also laughed, but what he said made Rayleigh unable to laugh. I want you to help me save our deputy captain. Rayleigh's pupils contracted, raised the cup, and drank it in one breath. Then, he said condensedly, I'm afraid I can't help you with this matter. When Letterfield was arrested into Impel Down, he read the news. That kind of place, especially where you can get in so easily. Even if he was the former Pluton Rayleigh, he still looked weak in the face of naval headquarters and Impel Down. It's not for you to help for free. Jiāng Liú doesn't care that the other party directly refuses. The reason for the refusal was simply because he had not heard of the bargaining chip he paid. Rayleigh narrowed his eyes. What does this mean? As a price for your help, I can also help you once in the future. Jiāng Liú said with a smile. Rayleigh's pupils contracted, and he understood what the other person meant. This is a favor, he promised to respond to the party, and the other party will repay it in the future. And the promises and favors of the world's #1 person are simply priceless. I can't seem to think of anything you can do to help. Rayleigh said, I can help you think about it. Jiāng Liú is still smiling. For example, when you are besieged by Marine and about to be arrested, I can save your life. After a pause, the smile in his eyes grew deeper. For another example, when a junior you know meets me, I can look at your face and spare his life. Rayleigh's expression became serious, and he stared at Jiāng Liú. This is a threat and a request. The young man in the other party's mouth, he can naturally imagine who it is, and 80% of the possibilities are Shanks. You know, there are some young people on my boat who know him well. Although, I heard that he has taken the position of 4 emperors now, but the young people on my ship are not bad. Jiāng Liú smiled and said, appearing very polite. Rayleigh was silent. The other party's words made him unable to refuse. It can be said that it was a threat at all. What are you going to do? After a moment, he sighed and said. My plan is very comprehensive, you can rest assured. Jiāng Liú smiled and stretched out his hand. Rayleigh stretched out his hand helplessly and shook it with him. Forcing me as an old man to unite with you guys, you are really unkind, Jiāng Liú. Jiāng Liú smiled slightly. Happy cooperation. Subsequently, Jiāng Liú and others left. Aunt Xiao looked at the empty hotel, and then dignifiedly at Rayleigh, who was frowning in front of her eyes. Are you really planning to cooperate with these guys? Go to Impel Down to save people, do you know the dangers of this? Her voice became severe and she became louder. Rayleigh shrugged helplessly. Of course I know. You finally disappeared from Marine's field of vision, and you will be involved in them again this time. Aunt Xiao said dissatisfied. So what can I do? Rayleigh sighed. Jiāng Liú can't threaten you at all, Shanks is already 4 emperors, and he should be responsible for his life. Even if the future dies in New World, that has nothing to do with you. You are no longer the deputy captain, Rayleigh. Aunt Xiao's voice grew louder and louder. So what? Black Flag can disturb the world for Ladefield, who has been trapped in Impel Down for more than 10 years. Why can't I make another move for the Roger Pirates? Rayleigh said softly. Aunt Xiao was silent. She knew that the other party was not willing at all, so how could she be willing? At the same time, Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Call Shichibukai. This time, we need to concentrate all our forces and be ready. If the Black Flag doesn't take any action, it's okay to say, if their goal is really what I guessed. That will be the biggest crisis in Marine's history. Sengoku looked serious and roared solemnly. In the meeting room, all vice admirals sitting in the meeting room were all expressions of grim expressions. They naturally know the strength of the Black Flag and the seriousness of the situation this time. Be prepared, gather your troops, and be vigilant. Black Flag, it's not easy to deal with. Even though there are only the people of the Black Pearl, I still think that compared to today's Whitebeard, their threat is not small. Sengoku's voice echoed in the meeting room. Every general marine has a heavy heart. Especially Impel Down, you must be fully prepared. After a pause, he thought of something again, and said in a deep voice. In addition, some people in Shichibukai were also closely related to Haichi. We should pay close attention to these people too. In the next possible war, no one knows what they will do. All general officers present here nodded silently. The meeting soon ended. From this moment on, the entire naval headquarters entered a severely guarded situation. Subsequently, the elites of the various branch fortress bases began to gather towards the headquarters. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that Marine is preparing for a war and has entered the stage of combat readiness. Chapter 283. Advertise here. Time passed, and 3 days passed in a blink of an eye. The Enies Lobby incident has spread more and more in the world, and the name of the Black Flag has also resounded throughout the world. Many people are surprised to find that a man who has lived in silence for many years, or who has been farming at home, trembles and his eyes are red when he sees the newspaper. Afterwards, they embarked on the road to the Grand Line. No one knows what happened to them, let alone what their identities were before. But such people were scattered all over the world, and when the name of the Black Flag came out again, they all went out to sea in unison, converging towards the sea. If you want to get into the propulsion vehicle and rescue Letterfield, the pressure that Black Flag has to face and the problems to be solved are too many. Sengoku said in a deep voice. They can't do it, let us reach Impel Down without noticing it. Naval Headquarters Marineford, the sunken Eni's lobby, and the great underwater prison Impel Down, form a triangular structure with a huge Uzumaki current in the middle. There are not many roads to choose from if you want to go to Impel Down. The only problem we face now is that it is not clear whether Jiāng Liú will act, or when he will act. This was a question before Marine, and it prevented them from making arrangements. Gathering forces in advance will only consume energy in vain. If you are one step late, I'm afraid it will really be too late. Can we execute Laidfeld, announce its news to the world, and force the Black Flag to fight us dignifiedly? Vice Admiral made suggestions. Impossible. Sengoku and Garp, their expressions changed drastically at this moment, and roared angrily. This unusual reaction surprised the Vice Admiral. The world government has already made a ruling on Letterfield and sent it to Impel Down. This is a trial based on his crime. To change the outcome of the trial is a blow to the dignity of the world government, and it is also our own disrespect for Marine. This kind of behavior is more like an expression of extreme lack of self-confidence in self-strength. Sengoku took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. After a pause, he said with a serious face again. Moreover, a dignified battle with the Black Flag. This is much more serious than forcing Whitebeard to fight us. You see his cadres and Jiāng Liú, how young are they? Sengoku's voice became louder. It's incredible. Their state is almost the same as it was 20 years ago. Such Jiāng Liú, with such a physical state, can be seen as a multitude of troops alone, and he needs the entire naval headquarters to be ready. Forcing him to collide with us head-on, the result will only be damage to naval headquarters. In the end, Sengoku's face was difficult to look. He is unwilling to admit this fact, but it is reality. The strength of Jiāng Liú was recognized by all the strong in that era. What four emperors, what Shichibukai, in front of the overlord of the sea, are just jokes. We can only think of a way to prevent Jiāng Liú from approaching Impel Down and rescue Letterfield. Know that there are millions of criminals who are also arrested in Impel Down, if something goes wrong there. Taking a deep breath, Sengoku looked solemn. That's really disaster. For the whole world, it is a huge disaster. Garp also spoke at this time, his eyes serious. In Impel Down, there are also many members of the Black Flag. However, Marine's prediction does not seem to be accurate. After 15 consecutive days, the Black Flag seemed to have disappeared from the world again. They did not attack naval headquarters, or Impel Down. Marine gathered around. With each additional day at naval headquarters, Sengoku's pressure increased. These elites came from all over the world, and their departure put a lot of pressure on the original place. It is impossible for him to let the temporarily mobilized troops stay in naval headquarters for a long time. Haichi didn't take any action, and his prediction was like a joke. Jiāng Liú is a wise man, and Marine has been waiting for him until this moment. He will definitely not rush over like this. You know, he only has one boat, and there are only dozens of people in a full boat. Rush Impel Down, it doesn't seem like his style. Listening to the voice in the phone worm, Sengoku fell silent. This was the words of the Army General Marshal Kong. He had a discussion with the other party and rehearsed the scene of the Black Flag attack. Maybe, but I also have a keen sense. I think Jiāng Liú must be watching us secretly and giving up a deputy captain. I'm afraid he can't do this. Sengoku said in a deep voice. Follow your inner guidance, Marine's pressure, I will share it. You can ignore the voice of the world government for the time being. Kong Shen said. These words made Sengoku breathe a sigh of relief. Quote. I know what kind of pirate group the Black Flag is, and have personally confronted them. Quote. Neither you nor me should ignore any small places. Empty sigh. Yes. Sengoku nodded his head. Time continues to pass, and the elites of naval headquarters can't bear it, waiting blindly, not knowing what they are going to do, which makes them a little annoyed. Standing in the office and looking outside, Sengoku's complexion became more and more serious. He has an urgent premonition, there is a huge pressure. I feel that they are coming. This feeling is extremely clear. Suddenly, in the naval headquarters, a sharp alert sound rang, a large swath of whistles that were sharp and piercing, tearing through the tranquil sky. What happened? Sengoku had a hunch and shouted immediately. Not far from the Uzumaki Ocean current, the Black Pearl was found. Good result, Black Flag. Marshal, the Black Flag pirates. The adjutant roared loudly, full of tension. Sure enough. Sengoku's pupils contracted, and then immediately stepped out of the office, giving orders loudly. Order all squads and all Marines stationed in the headquarters to act immediately, surround and pursue the Black Pearl. Notify the Impel Down garrison and get ready for battle. As long as you find the Black Flag, attack immediately, don't wait for me to order tile. The adjutant responded loudly, yes. After that, he hurriedly sent the order. In the inner bay of the naval headquarters, warships are driving quickly outside the Gate of Justice. At the same time, the mist is permeated, and beside the huge Uzumaki current, a dark, jewel-like ship is riding on the wind. It is amazingly fast. Guys, get ready to fight. Today is the time to rescue the deputy captain. Chapter 284. Advertise here. The sound of the wind and the rain were mixed together, and a large number of raindrops came toward everyone's faces like bullets. Jiāng Liú's words floated on the Black Pearl. This is the sea area extremely close to Naval Headquarters Marineford, and not far behind is the sunken Eni's lobby, which has been reduced to ruins. Beside them, the huge Uzumaki current is rumbling. The terrifying current is turning all the time. At the center is a large dark hole, pulling everything around it like a black hole. Go straight to impel down. Jiāng Liú shouted again. After waiting for nearly half a month, he finally brazenly rushed into this sea area today. No fear of Marine's ambush, no fear of Sengoku's calculations. Compared to them, Marine is more to worry about. Roar. On the Black Pearl, the cadres and crew members screamed vigorously. They were emotional and had already done all the battle changes. Rescue the deputy captain. Rescue Letterfield. They yelled. Everyone's complexion was very red and excited. Rayleigh sat in a remote corner, looking at the people on the ship, and sighed inexplicably. The former Roger pirate group is no longer there, but Black Flag does not seem to have changed in any way from before. The only difference is that the young boys at the time have grown up and have become the backbone of the ship. Thor Enel, Prince Leonard, Hulick, Horty Jones, these once young boys, have now grown to the same age as Shanks. Time is changing everything, but many have not changed. Sighing softly, Rayleigh appeared silent. He is a foreign aide that was pulled over, and there is nothing to say in this ship. The wind is very strong, the rain is also very urgent, the war has not yet started, but the atmosphere is already exceptionally severe. Boom. The roar of the huge ocean current shook the eardrums. Everyone knows that naval headquarters are easy to defend and hard to attack. The Black Pearl rushed over the sea, and the sea was undulating violently, but it walked flat on the ground, and its performance was no worse than that of the Jackson of the year. Frankie yelled excitedly, "I'm back. The feeling back then is back. This ship is still the same ship I held back then. Ha 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 ha. As long as I'm here, no one wants to catch us, no one wants to catch us." Its speed can be described as a gallop, and the wine in the power cabin is boiling with a splash, transforming it into a steady stream of power. At the bottom of the ship, the propeller behind the ship turned crazy. Suddenly, Marine's horn rang. The huge door of justice slowly opened, and Waldo retracted his binoculars, his eyes serious. "Marine found us. Get ready for battle." After a pause, he grinned grimly. "This is the other party's base camp." The crew screamed again and again, drew out their weapons one after another, ready to fight. "Don't worry about the people chasing us behind, impel me down." Jiāng Liú shouted. Frankie responded loudly. "Received." "What about the Moria? This war, the group of zombies who need him?" Jiāng Liú turned around and asked Leonard. He said, "He is already impelled down." Leonard was holding the phone worm, and said somewhat unexpectedly. "It seems that Marine has applied for him, let him wait for our arrival." Jiāng Liú smiled. He can remember Moria's identity now, one of Shichibukai. Marine even called Shichibukai, which shows how important it is to this battle. "Yes," Leonard said loudly, then turned his head and yelled at the phone bug. Over time, the wind and rain on the sea has not diminished in the slightest. Hundreds of warships rushed out of the huge gate of justice, pursuing the Black Pearl. On the deck of the first warship, it was Sengoku, Garp and others. "Order the whole army to be ready to fight at any time." Is Shichibukai all the members here? This is really surprising. Let them be optimistic about impel down and tell Magellan that they must block the door and definitely not allow the Black Flag group to enter. Sengoku took a deep breath and said loudly. The adjutant took it down and then quickly passed it to others. Among the 100 warships, the lieutenant rank officer with the lowest rank, everyone's expression at this moment is extremely serious. They know very well what kind of opponent they will face next. Lieutenant level officers are just cannon fodder. Fill the cannonballs. Once the enemy enters the strike range, immediately fire the cannonballs. On every warship, there were officers at the general rank, giving orders with a serious expression. As time passed by, the black ship in view seemed to care nothing about their fleet, and rushed towards impel down all the way. Damn, their ship is too fast. Can't catch up at all. Sengoku gritted his teeth. This ship is not inferior to Roger's Jackson. I want to catch up with him just by relying on standard warships. It's impossible to think about it. Garp embraced his hands and said lightly. It seems that the battlefield can only be set at impel down. The risk is too great. Sengoku gritted his teeth. Unknowingly, their fleet has also approached the huge Uzumaki current. After arriving here, the speed of the ship suddenly increased. Every captain at the helm needs to cheer up and will be swallowed up by the Uzumaki current if he doesn't pay attention. On the Black Pearl, Enel hovered cross-legged above the void, and lightning flashed and disappeared all over his body. Very sensitive area, give them a little surprise. He grinned. Jiāng Liú nodded. Be careful, don't get too close to them, they can have digital admiral presence. Okay, Captain. Enel chuckled, his figure flashed, and he disappeared before everyone's eyes. With another flash of effort, he has already arrived in front of the warship. That is, Thor Enel. Enel, who holds Logia Thunder Fruit, is probably not weaker than any of our Marine Admiral 3. Even, in terms of attack power, it may even exceed. Marine quickly noticed the figure floating in the air and said nervously. In the next second, Enel grinned grinningly, and flung out the splendid flower of the long stick in his hand, and suddenly pointed towards the front. 200 million volts. Lei Ying. In an instant, thousands of thunder lights centered on him, drew arcs, and whizzed toward the marine fleet ahead. Boom. Above the huge Uzumaki current, thunder resounded. Chapter 285. Advertise here. The blue arc, shining between the world and the earth at this moment, turned into thousands of rays of light to cut through the void, and bombarded towards the marine fleet. Dust to dust, dirt to dirt. Feel my power. Enel stood in the void, laughing and roaring. Carefully. Be careful to avoid lightning. Damn it, Enel's attack. It's terrible, it's like a natural disaster. The Marines panicked, but in an instant, the blue arc had already rushed, and the bombardment on their heads was deafening. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen warships were smashed into flames, and the Marine on the warship hurriedly put out the fire in a panic, but by accident, the warship deviated from its course and was drawn into the huge Uzumaki air current. Enel's thunder fruit, in terms of destructive power, is not weaker than Akainu's lava fruit, Aokiji's frozen fruit, even more than that. It's too much. Kizaru shone with golden light and said sharply. He was going to keep the opponent, the most threatening to him in the world was undoubtedly the thundering kid in front of him. Don't chase, he left. At this moment, Sengoku said suddenly. Kizaru paused, and saw a thunder and lightning rumbling in the void ahead, landing on the Black Pearl in the blink of an eye. His purpose is only to harass us and interrupt our pursuit. Sengoku said solemnly. Kizaru's eyes flickered, and finally nodded. These guys are very cunning, especially this thundering kid. Before the official World War I, we must retain our strength. To fight against the Black Flag, you must have a strong spirit. Sengoku took a deep breath, his eyes solemn. At the same time, in the port of Impel Down, the great underwater prison, warships were docked there, and several pirate ships were still caught in the meantime. This group of Shichibukai, who are also pirates, keep an eye on them, and they are all energized. The war is coming soon. The lead Marine Vice Admiral said angrily. The pirate on the warship immediately stood upright, with a serious and nervous expression. They didn't know what kind of enemy they were facing this time, and they even invited Shichibukai. What's even more incredible is that this time the 7 Wuhai, except for Crocodile, were all present. You know, on weekdays, when Marine issues orders to these Wuhai, these guys are very likely to ignore them. If all 6 Wuhai can be dispatched, it can be seen that the enemy this time is probably extraordinary. Impel Down, when did you experience such a thing? It is really disturbing. At the port, Magellan said with a gloomy face. He who was in Impel Down had naturally heard of Heiki's name. Many powerful big pirates held in this prison came from that pirate group. In the 6th floor, the vice captain of the other party is being held. Many of these pirates possess terrifying strength. From these pirates who are not even the backbone, one can see how terrifying this group of pirates named Black Flag is. The entire naval headquarters, Shichibukai, and even the world government are paying more attention to this impending war. Above the sea in the distance, on a gloomy, depressed, huge ship like an island. Hehehehe. It's so stupid that Marine took the initiative to invite me here. It seems that they are desperate. They would rather believe me, the pirate who was originally born in the Black Flag. Moria said with a smile. Captain, your smile is so sinister. Perona said helplessly. Where is Jinbei? Is that guy not here yet? Moria didn't care, but yelled and asked. I am here. At this moment, a powerful voice sounded. Jinbei stepped into the castle and looked at Moria, who was also Shichibukai with him. Maria, he cried out. Hehehehe, Seaman Jinbei. Moria smiled and called out her name. You called me, what's the matter? Jinbei asked in a deep voice. Although both of them were previously related to the Black Flag pirates, he eventually went to Fisher Tiger's Sun pirates, and the other party established the Moria pirates themselves. Among them, it can be said that they are not familiar with each other. I want to ask you something. Moria squinted. What's the matter? Jinbei said. Marine issued a response order and summoned Wuhai to come here to fight against the Black Flag pirates. You are called to come. Then, do you really want to be an enemy of Black Flag? Find flowers. Jinbei. Moria asked loudly. Hearing this, Jinbei was silent for a moment, and then said, Then what about you? Gecko Moria. As Shichibukai, you also came here. What are you doing for? After Moria heard it, she burst out laughing. Hehehehe. Of course I was lurking in Marine, and I just waited for the captain and them to come here, and immediately attacked Impel Down. Then rescue the deputy captain. Jinbei's pupils contracted when he heard the words. Could it be that you guy really intends to be enemies with the captain? Moria snapped. I have not seen Jiāng Liú and them for 20 years. 0. Jinbei sighed softly. The Black Flag, in my memory, will never be erased. The purpose of my coming here is also to want. Having said that, he took a deep breath. Want to see, brother Jiāng Liú, have they really reappeared in this world? Moria laughed. Of course, we have already seen it. You will see them soon. Afterwards, Moria stood up again, took Jinbei, and watched the huge corpses standing quietly in his zombie paradise. See it. When the captain and them meet with us, I will use their shadows and put them into the bodies of these zombies. They, then will be the best tool for us to Impel Down to initiate a charge. With the shadow of the captain and the cadres, the power produced. Hehehehe. No one can stop us. Moria laughed. Jinbei's pupils contracted and looked at the devil Oz, shocked in his heart. Time passed, and in a blink of an eye, there was an exclamation sound from the three-masted ship. At the same time, the roar of artillery fire resounded in an instant. Fighting. Have they arrived, Captain? Moria was pleasantly surprised. On the other side, Doflamingo looked at the oncoming jet-black ship, his pupils contracted and laughed. They are really back. The world is about to be in chaos. 1. Chapter 286. Advertise here. Fire. Fire. Hurry up. At the port of Impel Down, Marine Vice Admiral saw the pitch-black ship, and immediately changed color and roared. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, the sound of the artillery was deafening, and the pitch-black cannonball drew a parabola and whizzed forward. The waves exploded on the sea, and the dense cannonball screen was magnificent, and the strong smell of gunpowder suddenly permeated. They are here. Magellan's complexion was dignified, purple light glowed from her complexion, poisonous gas surged all over her body, and the jailer nearby hurriedly ran away. Suddenly, the void in front of him suddenly shook, and then everyone saw a brilliant blade of light shining on the sea. Choke. There was a sharp slashing sound, and a large cannonball was cut into two halves from the middle, then fell down and exploded in the air. The aura of that lord is really amazing. Doflamingo stood on a high place, looking at the sea ahead with a smile. He saw the tall man on the dark ship, holding a knife in his hand and carrying a slung around his waist, with an extremely powerful aura, staring at this side. Shimotsuki Jiāng Liú, the strongest man in the world. Overlord over the sea. Many names are piled on this man's head, but it is one of them that makes Doflamingo interesting. Mahawk, what do you think when you see this man? The world's largest swordsman. Not far from him, is standing the world's #1 swordsman, Eagle-Eye Dracula Mahawk. The man wearing a black top hat and formal attire, with eyes as sharp as eagles, turned his head and glanced at him coldly. His expression seemed to have no interest in answering. Very proud. There was a cold flash in Doflamingo's eyes, he sneered. Although the other party did not answer, he could see that the man was hiding his fighting spirit in peace. The world's #1 swordsman has no logarithms in this era. Mahawk's opponent was in the previous generation. Looking further away, the tyrant Bartholomew Kuma stared into the distance blankly, not knowing what he was thinking. The atmosphere is quite tense, the war is about to begin. Doflamingo squinted and smiled. Get ready for the battle. Prepare to be covered by artillery fire, and don't let the opponent break into the port. Marine Vice Admiral yelled, but just as his voice fell, a cold voice suddenly rang from the dark ship. Momo 100 times over. At the bow of the ship, a burly man with a bull's head helmet ejected fiercely with his right hand. Call out. The sound of breaking through the air was extremely sharp, and the sea roared. Everyone had their pupils contracted at this moment and their mouths grew. That is, what a huge shell. Oh my god, it's Berndi Waldo, his Momo fruit can multiply objects 100-fold. I can't imagine how terrifying a cannonball with 100-fold increase will be when it explodes. The Marines trembled all over, not knowing what to do at this moment. Call out. The sound of breaking through the air still resounded in everyone's ears, and the huge black shadow approached the port of Impel Down in an instant. Then, in everyone's eyes, one head hit hard. Boom. The deafening sound blasted loudly, and the flames radiated to the surroundings. In an instant, the warships at the harbor and the marine above them screamed and swept in by the flames. It's time to take action, a few woo high. On the high platform, the gloomy Marine Vice Admiral Mozambia said coldly. Marine doesn't trust these guys, and he doesn't know why they should be invited in such an important war. This time Marine is facing a very difficult opponent. Doflamingo said with a smile. Aside, Bartholomew's big bear flickered, and he came to the harbor with his palm raised. Boom. With a soft sound, the blazing flame suddenly went out. Afterwards, he raised his head to look at the fast-approaching black ship. There has never been any change in his expression. At this moment, it gave people a great pressure. Marine who was escaping next to him looked at him and became frightened. Maria, where are they going? At this moment, the Marine panicked again. Vice Admiral Mozambia quickly turned his head and saw a scene that immediately caused his pupils to shrink. This situation really happened. Moria of damn it. Pirate, really is a group of unbelievable guys. He growled angrily. On the sea, the huge three-masted sailboat was driving in the opposite direction, rushing towards the Black Pearl. In a blink of an eye, the two ships approached. Hey. Captain, we have been waiting for you for a long time. Moria said loudly. Jiāng Liú looked at Moria and grinned. Are you ready? Moria nodded heavily, emotional. Take our shadows away. After a pause, he said again. If you want to use Ryuma swordsman, put my shadow into his body. Moria was stunned. He originally wanted to stuff the captain's shadow into the body of the demon Oz. Captain's strength must be put into Oz's body to be more effective. But now, the other party actually asked for it like this. I want to see how powerful the legendary swordsman Ryuma was during his lifetime. After a pause, Jiāng Liú smiled again. With my shadow, he should be able to exert most of his power. Moria nodded. I see, Captain. Then, the shadow of Brother Waldo, put it into Oz's body, it must be very suitable. Valdo laughed. You're zombie, you are in charge. Moria laughed. After that, he looked at Cyrus, Karma, Sebastian, Garam and others. Everyone did not mind, and wanted to contribute their own shadows. I will be able to form a huge army of zombies. Captain, Cadres, wait and see. Leave the charge to me. Moria exclaimed excitedly. After that, he did not hesitate anymore, using shadow scissors, simply and neatly, carefully cut out the shadows of Jiāng Liú, Waldo and others. Soon, Marine will know how powerful our black flag is. Moria said with a grin. He leapt back from the bow and soon came to the front of the Demon Oz. Wake up, Demon Oz. With a frantic low growl, Moria hesitated slightly before squeezing Valdo's shadow into Oz's body. In the next second, a huge, majestic and terrifying creature slowly stood up. The Devil Oz is resurrected. Chapter 287. Advertise here. Boom. Oz, the extremely huge demon, is several times larger than the giants in terms of size. At this moment, he slowly stands up, like a huge and incomparable building. The shadow fell, and at the same time there was an inexplicable majesty, which made the zombies not far away tremble. Such a huge creature is born with a terrible aura. Roar. The Devil Oz stood up and let out a low roar, and the wind swept out. Oz, charge me and grab the port position. Moria commanded with a big laugh. Yes, Master Moria. Oz was very obedient. His current identity is Moria's subordinate, and his memory of the past is also a bit vague. The only thing that exists is the instinct to fight. Boom 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 boom. The huge demon Oz stepped forward, and the ground was shaken. After a while, he stepped into the sea, and even if he stepped into the sea, the upper body of his body was still on the sea, looking tall and terrifying. What the hell is that? Okay, it's huge. Is it 18 for us? At the port, the Marines screamed in horror when they saw the giant demon Oz. Marine Vice Admiral Mozambia, with a solemn expression, watched the huge creature approach, with fine beads of sweat oozing from his forehead. He didn't know whether he could stop this terrifying creature. Not to mention, there is a group of black flags behind it. Damn it, Marshal Sengoku, why haven't they reinforced it yet? Gritting his teeth, Mozambia yelled suddenly. Shoot me, you can't let this guy go ashore. The huge demon Oz is like a giant. Once the opponent goes ashore, the damage caused is absolutely terrifying. In a moment, the nervous Marines lit the fuse. Boom 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 boom. A series of cannonballs swept towards the demon Oz, who stretched out his stout arm and waved it violently. There was a loud roar, flames swept out, and fragments of shells fell to the sea. Roar. You guys are looking for death. Oz roared and stepped in the water, stirring up large waves. As he walked forward, he reached out and grabbed the warship floating on the sea violently, and then threw it into the air with ease. Boom. The warship was directly thrown into the harbor by its terrifying power, smashing a piece of marine. This guy is too big. Damn, how could they have such a monster? Marine shouted in horror. The Devil Oz was almost unblocked, and soon, he was about to reach the port. On Moria's three-masted ship, a group of figures also slowly stood up. Silver Axe, Akoku, Captain John, they were all given the shadows of the cadres of the Black Flag Pirate Group. After opening their eyes at this time, the powerful aura on their bodies rose. Boom, boom. Captain John picked up the wine bottle next to him, took a few sips in his mouth, and then hiccuped, showing a comfortable expression. But soon, he saw the drink flowing out of the hole in his body. It's a pity, but it's nice to be able to enjoy the drinking process. With that, he put the wine bottle in his arms again. Everyone, keep up with Oz and seize this port. Moria ordered. Listen to you. Respect my lord's name. Who are you going to hit? Marine. The three spoke in turn, looking in the direction of Impel Down. It's really an anxious battle. Captain John sighed. Afterwards, Moria didn't care about these three guys, but carefully stuffed the shadow of Jiāng Liú into Ryuma's body. It can be seen that this guy is an unusual person. Captain John nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, Ryuma opened his eyes abruptly. A sharp, powerful breath swept out suddenly, and the dust on the ground was rolled up at this moment. Sure enough to be the captain's shadow, such a powerful aura is really terrifying. You may have regained your former strength, Ryuma. Moria said in shock. My strength before death. Have you seen what I looked like before I was alive? Ryuma heard the words, turned his head, and said faintly. No, but it doesn't interfere. Ryuma, you, like them, captured this port and defeated our enemies. Moria said loudly. I need a knife. Looking down at the empty hand, Ryuma said. Knife. Moria was taken aback. Just at this moment, a black light burst out from the black pearl, followed by the strong wind, and instantly arrived in front of them. It's Chushui. Moria's pupils contracted, shocked. He knew that this knife was the captain's personal famous knife, and it had already been condensed into a more powerful black knife. At this moment, the captain gave this knife to Ryuma. Familiar feeling. Ryuma stepped forward, grasped the Chushui knife handle, and muttered. He is your knife. On the black pearl, Jiāng Liú's voice came. You are also a powerful swordsman. Ryuma's eyes sharpened, and he felt the terrible sword intent on the opponent. Let us see your strength, Mr. Ryuma. You who used my shadow to resurrect, whether it is attributes or sword skills, should be quite compatible. Jiāng Liú's voice came again. Ryuma was silent, perceiving carefully. He nodded. Sure enough, you actually mastered my sword skills during my lifetime. Part of what I have learned in my life is inherited from you. Jiāng Liú said. That's amazing. I can feel that your terrible sword intent has surpassed me. Ryuma sighed. Jiāng Liú did not respond again. His eyes looked forward, and a sharp gaze was fixed on him. Dracul Mihawk, the world's largest swordsman in this era. Suddenly, Mihawk pulled out the black sword knife behind his back, and his movements were simply and neat, and without hesitation, he swung a knife in the direction where he was. Call out. The sharp chopping wave, shining with astonishing light, cut a pitch-black chasm across the sea, and came to the front at an astonishing speed in an instant. Jiāng Liú grinned. Chu Ling unsheathed his waist in an instant, and then swiped the knife sharply. Call out. The same slashing wave opened the sea and collided with Hawkeye's slash in an instant. Boom. The rays of light burst, and several chasms were split directly on the sea surface. Immediately afterwards, Jiāng Liú's slashing trend disappeared, and he still rushed towards Hawkeye. The brilliant slash came to Mihawk Hawkeye in an instant. The latter held a black knife and stared at this slash without swinging it. The slash quickly reached his eyes, and then suddenly disappeared. Horrible sword intent. Speaking softly, Mihawk's eyes became serious. Chapter 288. Advertise here. The two of them looked at each other across the sea, and their eyes were clear and calm, like a lake of autumn water. As expected to be the world's largest swordsman. The next second, they all murmured in their mouths. In Mihawk's eyes, the fighting spirit was even stronger. He couldn't forget the hardships of tens of thousands of knights, wielding a long knife, and sweating on the ground, let alone the longing that burst in his heart when he heard the reputation of the man opposite. It can be said that one of the most important reasons why I have worked so hard and so crazy to come to the sea is because of the man in front of me. I defeated all the famous swordsmen in the world, but I did not defeat you. Mihawk murmured. His breath became more fierce, and his fighting spirit was surging, eager to fight the opponent. Horror measurements on a sailing boat. Did you see it? Ryuma, your opponent is him. Moria pointed at Mihawk and yelled. He is the world's largest swordsman. Ryuma heard it. He carried the black knife Chushui, his eyes flashed, and he felt the powerful sword intent on Mihawk. Unexpectedly, besides him, there is a man with such a powerful sword intent. At this moment, the demon Oz let out a roar and slammed his fists against the port of Impel Down. Boom! Large swaths of rocks flew, and the marines screamed and were shaken into the sky. Oz has gone ashore. Moria laughed. What should I do? This behemoth is terrible. He is too strong and too big, and the shells can't do any harm to him at all. Damn, this big guy, he can actually play 6 styles and also hockey, how should I fight? The marines looked terrified and scolded again and again. Oz's strength made them feel desperate. The demon who merges with the shadow of Vardo also holds the strength of Vardo. He can use hockey, and can even cover the whole body with armed color, and can use 6 forms. Shave. It was just a flicker. His huge figure had come to the dense turret of Marine, and then let out a roar and swept across with a punch. Boom. With smoke and dust everywhere, a large area of Marine was knocked into the air, screaming again and again. He is a giant, and there is no one else to do. Hume. How do you deal with such a big guy? Doflamingo flew away to avoid the air wave, and said with a low smile. Looking at the sea ahead, the Black Pearl was already approaching, and Moria's thriller bark also hit the shore with a crash. Kill. Large swarms of zombies, howling and pouring into the port, were fighting with Marine in the blink of an eye. Captain, we can take the opportunity to break into Impel Down. Moria yelled excitedly. Jiāng Liú's boat also stopped on the shore at this time. He leapt slightly, and Waldo and others immediately followed behind him. Let us go. Good job, Jiāng Liú said with a smile. Hey. Moria laughed. He opened his hands to control the zombie army, and attacked the entrance of Impel Down. At this moment, a figure suddenly flickered, and blinked to the front of Jiāng Liú and others. If you travel, where do you want to go? The cold and deep voice sounded. Bartholomew Kuma's burly figure and oppressive breath made everyone concentrate. I don't want to go anywhere. Jiāng Liú smiled faintly. The next second, the bear's figure flickered suddenly, and he blinked and came in front of him. The bear's paw lifted up and slapped him away with a bang. Facing this blow, Jiāng Liú made a fist and then threw a fist. Boom. The air wave rolled, and the bear's body shook. The whole person was blown out and hit the distant wall, causing the hard wall to split instantly. Can't fly him. What a terrible man, Bartholomew Kuma murmured. But his figure flashed again, and soon he was in front of everyone in Black Flag. But this time, Leonard stood in front of him. Hey, in front of our captain, are you guys too arrogant and wanton? The bear was silent, and the bear's paw lifted up and slapped forward. Boom. The air cannon rushed out instantly. Leonard changed color, his arms quickly blocked in front of him, only hearing a bang, the ground exploded, his figure was blown out fiercely. The ability of this guy is very difficult, Kulik said loudly. Without hesitation, Waldo shot a pitch-black cannonball with his fingers. In the blink of an eye, the cannonball arrived in front of the bear. But after the flame dissipated, Zhang walked out unscathed. Let's do what we should do. Jiāng Liú said. He was not going to waste too much time with the bear. The group nodded, and then hurried towards the entrance of Impel Down. On the other side, Hawkeye Mahawk was about to swing a knife at Jiāng Liú and fight the opponent, but suddenly there was an extra figure in front of him. Some decayed, hardened corpses, and broken cloth strips all represent the identity of the other party. Zombies are exactly Moria's zombies. But Mahawk didn't dare to care at all. He felt a terrible breath from the opponent, sharp and domineering. Quote. Who are you? Quote. He asked aloud. Ryuma. My name is Ryuma. Ryuma said lightly. Swordsman Ryuma. I seem to have heard this name. Mahawk said condensedly. Ryuma did not respond, but pulled out the chushui from his waist. That is Jiāng Liú's saber. Mahawk said. This is my knife. Chu Shui said lightly. Just this sentence made Mahawk's expression serious and serious. He had a hunch that he might be a legend in front of him. Hai slowly pulled out, and Mahawk glanced at Jiāng Liú again, feeling a pity in his heart. But the enemy in front of you is more worthy of serious treatment. In the next second, the two eyes collided, and their bodies disappeared in an instant. Obtained Zhao. When the long knife collided, bursting out brilliant electric lights. Immediately afterwards, there was a series of extremely fast slashes, the sound of gold and iron continued to spread, and the sharp slashes caused the surrounding buildings to collapse one by one, and many cracks were opened on the ground. On the other side, Jiāng Liú and his group walked fast, and in a blink of an eye they reached the door of Impel Down. Stop here. The venom dripped from Magellan's body, and his voice was low and solemn. You alone can't stop us. Jiāng Liú smiled. Toxic gas is difficult to entangle, but it is not impossible. At this moment, Marine's excited figure suddenly sounded behind him. Jiāng Liú turned his head, and saw the densely packed warships quickly approaching here. Ice Age. There was a loud shout, and the entire sea was frozen. Come yet. But it's too late. You can't stop me. Jiāng Liú smiled and turned to look at Magellan again.